there? Do you want to? Perfect. Thank you. Welcome everyone to our virtual interview with our industry business partner reps. This is being funded by the Career Pathway Specialist Project in collaboration with our regional directors. And so today our focus is on digital media, ICT, and I'm pleased to introduce to you Charlotte, who's the regional director for ICT digital media, and she will introduce our guest speaker. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you joining us on a Tuesday afternoon. I am so proud to have our speaker today, Brian, who is he's the Vice President of the Crancer Group and a former peer at Microsoft. And Brian, if you could just elaborate a little more on what led you to where you are now, and a little bit about your bio and your history, that
Sure.
might entertain more questions.
Sounds good. Thanks, Charlotte. So yeah, I'm Vice President of Partner Development at the Crancer Group, and was recently at Microsoft for 5 years as a technical evangelist and partner development manager. I've been, doing tech for 20 years or so. Before that, I worked at a humanitarian nonprofit for about 10 years doing tech there, and I was director for IT recruitment. So we recruited people to come work with the nonprofit. We did all kinds of things, AIDS education and literature, translation work, that kind of thing. And then prior to that, I ran my own insurance agency. So a lot of entrepreneurial kind of stuff and things like that. Educationally, this is the funny part. This is the beauty of tech. My education, I hold a BA in philosophy and biblical literature. I have a master's and a PhD in theology. So absolutely nothing to do with tech, but it taught me how to think, and that's critical. And I'll be talking about that a little bit later in terms of skill set and how to prepare for a career in technology. So with that, do you want me to move along here? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Let's talk about how you got to where you are now. And you just mentioned that although your education is in a completely different.
Kira, do you have time to listen to this?
I'm sorry. Can we ask everybody to mute? I see a few that are not muted. Thank you. I'm sorry, Brian. So what I was going to ask you is if you could just tell us a little bit about your path. You mentioned, your degrees and your masters in different areas. How did that get you into the IT world?
Right.
And how did Microsoft, I think I know where it's going to go, but how did you connect with Microsoft and get into that evangelist role? And what does that mean?
Sure. So yeah, technical evangelist, that's a role in which basically I parachuted in for the DX team, which is the developer experience team, and fixed issues for them. So there were blockers, right? So this is like kind of a pre-sales role, and in order to get developers to get on the platform and consume more of the platform, I'd go on and help them with the documentation and how to get their stuff on Azure and running. So it's kind of parachute in, take care of a problem, and then I'm out onto the next call. So kind of, man, it's been a long journey. I came out of college. My first role out of college was a sales role at Nordstrom. So there I learned a lot about customer service and how basically never to say no. You find anything but no to say to a client. You can tell them no in a non-no way. That's okay. But man, you got to come up with the alternatives. And then after that, I was on a support desk for Peachtree accounting software. And so that's where I started getting into tech. And then, just kind of moved along from there. ended up as, like I said, the director of, well, I ran an insurance company, took that over from my dad, and there was a lot of tech in that. We had AS400s that we ran, and I was super interested in it. I just wanted to learn everything I could about it and just kept learning. And after that, worked for the humanitarian agency as director of IT recruitment. And there I ran shadow IT. So our IT was super painful to provision servers and things like that. But yet I had a budget. And so I was like the perfect Azure person. And this is really prior to Azure. I was on Rackspace. So I bought servers on Rackspace, had my team spin things up. We said, hey, we're developers. We know what we're doing. Let's get this stuff going. And my team was able to, basically set up microsites that helped us with the recruitment process and automated processes so that we didn't have to do all the work ourselves. There was a lot of repetitive work and things like that. And then after that, I got some education in digital forensics and ethical hacking. So that's kind of my background as well. And at that point, Microsoft, became interested, and I ended up at Microsoft as a technical evangelist, and then later a partner development manager. So, I mean, all that to say that for me, the real big issue is, how you think about things. And let me get my little deck down here, and I'll tell you a few things about this. And this is what I tell my classes. I'm also an adjunct professor at Northwest University here in Kirkland, and I teach at the School of Business. So systems design, systems analysis, introduction to MIS, those sorts of classes.
Wonderful. From these classes, what do you recommend would be the way students could get in and get their foot, like their first role within the IT sector? It sounds to me like I always tell the students that I talk with in faculty that if they can volunteer their time through some form of philanthropy, then you start to build that reputation.
Sure.
And that leads to opportunities. Is that the way Microsoft found you? Because that's how they found me when I worked for them, was through my philanthropy efforts.
Right. So they didn't, not through that. This was a direct hire where I came in. Actually, I came in through a vendor. And so I worked for the vendor who was hired by Microsoft. So yeah, so that's really, the bulk of my career at Microsoft, was just simply as a vendor, and it was about the skill set. So at that time, I had done a lot of training and actually was a expert witness in court around cell phone forensics, and had been doing that for a little bit. And then, Microsoft said, wow, you obviously, have a pretty good, grip on the tech stack. And so we want you to, come over and run these programs for us. So I hooked up with this vendor called N3, and we were able to, run programs for Microsoft in the One Commercial Partner organization. So, that's kind of how they found me there. The thing is, though, and this is what I tell my class quite a bit, is that most tech jobs can be outsourced. So, how do you build the type of thinking where these jobs are not going to be outsourced? How do you bring enough to the table to where folks aren't going to say, wow, we can get that done for $500 a month over here in India or China? And what I like to talk about is the stack of skills that you need to possess in order to not have that happen. And I call them critical skills for non-routine cognition. And there's 4 of them. There's abstract reasoning, which is the ability to construct a model or a representation. So that's real abstract, right? We talk about logical models and physical models in systems design. And that's what I'm talking about there, is that abstract reasoning. And then systems thinking. So, how do you model system components and show how component input and outputs relate to one another? That's systems thinking. And then collaboration, develop ideas and plans with others, provide and receive critical feedback from people and act on that feedback. And then the ability to experiment. So you want to be able to create and test promising new alternatives consistent with available resources. And I think those four things together is what companies like Microsoft, Google, AWS, those folks are looking for in their engineers and even in their salespeople. So those are really critical skills that you need to have. That will keep you from being outsourced.
So, you also, in your current role, you work for, and you were a Microsoft partner supporter. Can you talk a little bit about that role and then lead into the roles that you hear the partners are needing right now? Now, before we went to, pivoted to virtual everywhere,
Yeah.
there was such a demand for technical support, anywhere from the help desk on up. So many entry-level positions. What do you recommend as we kind of just hover in this virtual world that students can do now to prepare themselves when we either are out of this pandemic or we still pivot to virtual and they can get into these roles?
Right. So, again, from my perspective, it's critical to understand the cloud. By the time students are in the workforce, there won't be data centers anymore. I tell my classes all the time, I'm like, look, you guys are I teach upper level classes, so, juniors and seniors. And I'm like, by the time you guys graduate, you're not going to see a data center. It's people are going to be universally moving to the cloud. They're doing it right now. And so that's super important. So I would recommend getting a cloud certification. Go get AZ 900 or AZ 101, 100, 101 from Microsoft. Those are the
fundamentals.
Those are the fundamentals, yeah.
Right.
And I'm telling you, that will differentiate you from the crowd. If I'm looking to hire somebody and they come in with an AZ 100, which is a fundamental core, or AZ 900, which is the fundamental, I'm like, at least what we're talking about here. You come in with a 100 or 101, I'm like, wow, you're really ready to roll. You've got a good grip on this stack, and that's what it's really about. Anymore, people, companies want you to hit the ground running. It's a very demanding environment, and the more that you can bring to the table to differentiate, the better you are as a candidate.
So in the IT sector, you're constantly learning. If you become stagnant, you become out of date, and then you have to rebuild that skill set again.
Yep.
So continuing your education, being on the forefront with things that are changing. What kind of salaries can students expect in that entry level, AZ fundamentals, Azure fundamentals certifications within the industry right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think a candidate with one or two certifications, and they can be AWS. I like Azure. I'm an Azure, I'm a Microsoft guy, so Azure's the place to go. But if you're coming with a couple of certifications, you should be solidly in the 50K, 50 to 70K range. Even coming, you got a BA, a couple of certifications, a few things, you should be right in that range. And then the sky's the limit. I mean, especially in sales, you get into commission sales, and things can get pretty crazy money. A developer, if you want to go the developer route, learn C#, Python. I tell folks to learn Python. It's a great language and very flexible. You can be in the 120K kind of range, 120 to 150. Coming out of school, it'll take you a couple years to get there, but you might start at about 75, 80,000. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of range in there, but just depending on the skill set. Skill set's everything. I mean, companies, they don't want to take a lot of time to develop people. They want people to sit down and start, working straight away. What I have been hearing too, which might be helpful, is that the candidate with the BA or the BS and a certification is much more appealing than someone that went to Coding Dojo, for instance. And what we're finding is that candidates that have like a BS in computer science, we don't have to educate folks on the systems thinking and the logic, the kind of the life cycle, the SDLC, all of that kind of stuff is important. But yet we're finding that folks that just learn like full stack web developer, they don't have the business acumen and the development acumen that they're really looking for.
So it's like pieces of a pie.
Yeah.
You have a certain piece, but you want to fill the remainder of that pie tin with additional skill sets that are complementary towards each other that work within your industry sector.
Exactly. And then, you know, you have your unicorns. So if you have a developer who understands business, that's golden. I mean, that you know, now you're approaching kind of business analysis territory, or even beyond that, because of the development experience, and that really becomes super valuable. A lot of developers are not good speaking business. A lot of business people are not good speaking IT. And I spent a good part of my career doing just that, joining the two groups together so they could talk to each other. And so if you have that skill set, you'll do real well as well.
So it's beyond just technical, because you can work in IT and not be extremely technical.
Right.
What would some of the skill sets needed that you can think of that would help those who maybe want to go into project management, or they want to work maybe with the CRM, which is something like a Salesforce, for those of you who aren't familiar with that? And what do you think the additional roles are? And then I want to circle back and go over those 4 elements that you mentioned, because we're being asked in the chat if we could mention those again.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it really does come back to those 4 elements, because, you know, the technology changes, but those 4 elements won't. I'll mention them again in just a minute. Let's see, you were asking in terms of skill sets.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So like business analysis is, again, I love, you know, BAs, and they join that. They're the bridge, right? So they are able to, you know, talk to developers, not get smoke blown up their skirt, you know, by develop, because they'll do that. You know, I've had a lot of developers look at me and say, hey, we can't do that. And I'm like, come on, man, I know you can do it. It's a matter of budget. It's a matter of time. It's a matter, you know, it's, you know, but it can be done. So you have to know a little bit something about everything, you know, and again, if you're a lifelong learner, you're going to do well in this industry. If you're not, it's going to be very, very challenging, because things change.
Yes.
Things change on a you know, daily basis. With Azure, they add about 5 to 10 services a week. So you can see right off the bat, you know, just the technology is coming at you like drinking out of a fire hose. Abstract reasoning, I'll give you the critical skills for non-routine cognition. It's abstract reasoning, systems thinking, collaboration, and the ability to experiment. Now, yeah, you got to know some tech, you know, so I would, you know, what is it? Pluralsight is a great place to go. EDX, another great place. And you can get MOOCs that are, you know, world class. I've done classes through MIT, Harvard, and super good. You get a little certificate, you know, and
So digital badging and certifications.
Yep. Yeah. Put the badge up on LinkedIn, you know.
Yes.
And when I was at Microsoft, I pulled like 41 assessments, and I've got all the little certificates for those. So there's just all kinds of things you can do to prove that, hey, I'm bringing value to an employer.
Right. So those are, for those who maybe don't have a solid resume, those digital badges and certifications are talking points to get them into the door, and then taking it to the next step.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then that's where they sell themselves and their passion for technology and learning and the opportunity that they're looking for.
Absolutely. You know, if I'm looking at LinkedIn, which I I typically don't ask for resumes. I just go to their LinkedIn. And so that's another little tip. Definitely have a LinkedIn and, you know, beef that thing up, put as much as you can on there. And yeah, go for the badges. You might get a badge and say, you know, Veeam does one on a backup engineer that I got one time. IBM does them. They're free. You know, they're, you know, they're going to cost you 4 hours of training, and then you take the exam. I've got several from IBM on big data. And, you know, if I saw that on someone's LinkedIn, I'd go, hey, tell me about that. What'd you learn? You know, how do you think it would apply here? You know, at Microsoft, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're being asked, and maybe you could type those in the chat, those 4 elements again.
Yeah.
Apparently everybody loves them. Now, when we talk about digital badging, we here in the LA community colleges we're blessed enough to have the opportunity to use LinkedIn Learning and push the digital badging and certifications to help students build their skills, get a deeper knowledge dive, and just talking points as they go to these opportunities for internships and roles.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the last 3 things that you can think of that our students and or faculty should know when talking to the students to be job ready. What would you recommend that they do? And then well, Brian is giving us those things. If you want to post some questions in the Zoom chat, we still have a few minutes to take those.
So job readiness, you know, again, it's coming back. You know, probably sound like a broken record, but gee, I don't even think we use that term anymore, do we? Broken record, but
I do.
okay. But you know, it's going to come back to these critical skills, badging and certifications. I literally, at one point, I did a job interview before I had badges and certifications, and they looked at me and they said, you know, you've got some really great, super great experience here, but you know, you don't have any certs, and that was that. It just, you know, it was such a kind of crushing experience. And that's when I came out of that nonprofit. I was there for 10 years and came out and wanted to, you know, pick something up. And they were like, wow, you got great experience, but no certs. How do we know you can do something, you know? So right. I went and got a bunch of certs.
So the certifications too could be something like a Scrum Master, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So project management.
Yep.
It doesn't take too much time, but it builds that insight. So it's an added value when you go into an environment or a company that uses that structure to manage their products, or having great written and verbal skills, because no matter what level you are within any sector, you're going to have to write reports, you're going to have to document, you're going to have to talk to your customers and or peers or leadership.
Yep.
So the more comfortable you are with that, the better off you are. And I see you put in here the 4 elements, and thank you for putting those in so everybody has them. Does anyone have any questions? Well, we have Brian on the webinar. Great chance. Brian, can you talk a little bit about maybe what it means to be working with Microsoft partners? Because I talk about, you know, working with the IAMCP, the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, and what those roles are, and like almost a hidden area where numerous opportunities for employment and or even mentorship could be found.
Sure. So, you know, I mean, internships are great. What I'm finding with my students is they're actually going out and getting jobs, not internships. Their internships are kind of, I don't know what's going on with those. But, you know, if you can get into that, that's super good anytime to get hands-on. What was the rest of the question? Sorry.
Oh, just the opportunities within the channel partners. Now, I know prior to COVID, they could not fill those roles with cloud certifications or help desk support because our economy was on fire. Now we've kind of taken a step back and people are having to think, okay, where do I go look? Where's my entry point? What do I do? And for those who have that skill set refresh, how do I reach out to those people? Right. Networking, joining groups, following people.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's huge, huge. So LinkedIn is going to be your, your best friend, really. That's how I ended up with Crancer Group. And knowing people, networking is huge.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, it's incredible. I knew, Sherman for 6 years, the last 6 years, and we worked together at Microsoft. And he heard that I'd gotten laid off. The company I'd been with got bought by a bigger company where there was redundancy. They said, "Oh, you're done," just recently. And the next day, Sherman's like, "Hey, I want you to come work with me." So the networking is really huge. Um, and just build it. I'm trying to think of what else, in this environment, it's pretty dang tough. But
It's who you know and what you know, right?
it is, it really is who you know. It really is.
Who you
Yeah,
know knows what you know.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean, you got to know something, but
Right.
knowing who is definitely the key. And that's going to be true. That was true pre-COVID too. I mean, you can be the smartest guy in the world and have a great resume, but if no one sees it, it really doesn't matter.
Right. So
So,
One
network.
other question, if I
yep,
could just jump in.
sure.
Where can we gain those digital badges?
Just about anyone has digital badges out there. Any vendor, any like IBM, AWS, that's Amazon Web
Auntie
Services.
Green said you should get a digital badge for your resume.
What's that?
Hello?
Someone said something about digital badge
Yeah,
for the resume.
I think they're wondering
Okay.
how, and I'll post in our chat how they can utilize, like, just so right now, there are so many companies that are
Yeah.
offering free certifications because they worry about 20 million people being without work. And how can you pivot to get the next role and keep food on the table and get your opportunities no matter what age group you are. So, but real quick for LA, if you have a library card, you can get LinkedIn Learning for free. I don't know how long that will go on. The
Yep.
colleges here in Los Angeles are on a year-to-year basis with LinkedIn Learning, which is huge because these are quick obtainable digital badges or certifications that you can do to add to your skill set in really quick time to get an opportunity. Not everyone can fill all those requirements of a job, but if you can get 9 out of 10,
Yeah.
and maybe a couple of them are through any type of certification or digital badging, then you're more likely to be called in for that interview. And those are the good talking points to show that you're trying to pivot yourself for that next role.
Exactly. Pluralsight is giving away a free month. And they've got stuff on there, and EDX again. I think it's $99 to get a verified certificate through EDX.
Great.
So there's and all the companies, go to the big, IBM, AWS, Microsoft, Google, they all have certifications.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any
Thank you,
last
Brian.
questions? I
No,
think
I
our
think
time
our
is up.
time is up.
Thank you so much, Brian. You were an amazing speaker. Loved your insight, and I look forward to working with you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is hosted by our regional director, Katie Mitchler, who's the Advanced Transportation and Logistics, and I'll let Katie introduce the speaker.
All right, thank you, Lila, and thank you, Charlotte. My name is Katie Mitchler. I'm the Regional Director for Advanced Transportation and Logistics in Los Angeles County, and I'm very, very pleased to actually have two colleagues who have been wonderful partners and supportive of our different programs at both the colleges and at the K-12 level. So I'm very happy to have Marion Colston, who's the Senior Director, Strategic and Organizational Planning for Los Angeles Metro, as well as Mr. Tai Alimi, who's the Principal Talent Development Specialist. So welcome to both Miriam and Tai. real quickly, I'm just going to ask you to briefly give everyone an overview of what each of you do at LA Metro. So Miriam, can you tell us a little bit about what your job role is there?
Good afternoon, Katie and everyone else. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I want to be sure because I can't tell. All right, my title is very long, but currently I'm overseeing and leading workforce development next generation. So we have 3 programs. One of them is called the Transportation Career Academy program, which is for high school students, 11th and 12th graders, and we offer them a 7-week summer internship program. We also have 2 other programs. One is called the Metro Internship Program for undergraduate students, graduate and postgraduates, as long as they're currently in school. And I'm going to let Tai talk about that or address those 2 programs. And then we have the entry-level trainee program, which is for college graduates, if you've graduated from college. Is that
Wonderful.
good enough right now?
That's perfect for right now.
Okay.
And Tai, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Tai Alimi, and I'm a Principal Talent Development Specialist. I manage the Metro Internship Program and the Entry-Level Trainee Program. Metroship Internship Program, also known as MIP, hires college students, undergraduate and graduate students. The program is a paid program. We offer 29 hours per week. They have the opportunity to work for 2 years, as long as they are in school and register in 12 units for undergraduate students and 6 units for grad students. The ELTP, Entry-Level Training Program, is designed for recent graduates, students or graduates within the past 2 years. They have the opportunity to work for 2 years as well, and they work 40 hours a week. And the program pays $22.14 per hour.
Katie, I wanted to add one more program that we have with Los Angeles Trade Technical College. It's called the Rail Technical Training Program, and you can receive, particularly young people coming out of high school, if they're interested in rail maintenance, they can enroll at LA Trade Tech and go through a 2-year associate degree program to receive foundational basic training, which would make or help them be eligible to compete for a position, one of our 5 hard to fill positions. One is called Signal Inspector. Another is called Traction Power Inspector. In addition to that, we have the Track Inspector as well as the Rail Communications Electronic Inspector. So both of those programs or courses, all 5 of those hard to fill, really focus on electronics and electrical. But because they're union jobs, they need to compete for those jobs. But if they go to Trade Tech, they can have a heads up or one's up on anyone else who is just going to a regular vocational school. That's a partnership that we created about 3 years ago. It's been very successful. And what we've done, if you graduate from that program, then there's some concession made when you go to compete for the job, as long as you have that on your resume. Okay, but they're both union jobs, and we also offer it internally to our current ATU members.
Awesome.
But I wanted to put that out there.
Yes, no, that's good to definitely talk about that strong partnership. And I know that Metro has other partnerships besides rail with LA Metro for maintenance and mechanics as well. And so the next question I wanted to ask, I always think it's really interesting and important to see how people's career journey goes. I think it's important for students to kind of see that it's not always a very linear straight line. Quite a few of us do some zigging and zagging and end up not where we intended, but it's where we end up being meant to be. So Marion, do you mind giving us a little overview about your career journey and how you ended up in transportation and then at LA Metro?
Well, I want to first say I graduated from high school when I was 17. And I just thought I had the world at my hands. I was going to get a job, I was going to get a car, and I was going to get an apartment in those 3 things. And then I realized that I didn't have any skill sets. And I ended up getting a job because I was in the Girl Scouts, ended up working at a residential camp in the summer. And I soon was introduced to a whole host of other people from other countries, all across America. And everyone talked about going to college. So when I returned home, my mom signed me up for community college because she knew. She was a registered nurse. She said, this young lady has to go to college. So I started my career at community college. I went to a 4-year school, transferred, and I graduated from historically African American college, and I majored in sociology. I'm going to be really quick. From sociology, I did social work for 6 years. Then I ended up working at a university. No, I went back to school because I did not want to stay in the social work field. I went back to school and received my master's in education only because I knew I had my summers off. And while I was working as a high school teacher, I ended up needing to make a little extra more money, and I ended up working in a summer job at a university. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I've been in California for the last 25 years. So while I was at Widener, the teacher ed department kept me on board, and I stayed there for 4 years, always wanting to make more money, always wanted to do something different. And I fast-tracked and ended up working for the Pennsylvania Department of Aging. From there, an opportunity presented itself at the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, very comparable to Metro. They had 10,000 employees, and they were looking for people in other disciplines. The day that I went down, it was a huge hiring event. I never thought I would get hired because I started speaking to people. There were 500 people, but I did get hired. And I was one of 15 who were hired and one of 4 women who were hired. I ended up staying there for 4 years. I promoted 4 times to chief officer of Subway Elevated. And then an opportunity presented itself. And listening to the last speaker, someone called me who was hired as the CAO. And I came out, I interviewed, everyone liked me, and they offered me a job. And I'm happy to say I've been at Metro for 25 years. But it was that opportunity.
Awesome, thank you. I know it's always
Welcome.
interesting to see how different doors start to open, and when you take advantage of those, it can lead you down some different paths. Tai, can you share a little bit about your journey?
Of course. My journey has been interesting. Growing up, I wanted to be 2 things, a journalist and a civil lawyer. And somehow from Brooklyn moving to LA, I became interested in IT. And I started my first year of college actually learning coding, computer programming. I got a job with a company called, I think still in existence, called US Search. And what we were doing back then was searching. This was the pre-Google time. And people will pay. They will call in. They will pay us to search and give them information. So from there, and taking from what Brian said earlier about IT, I started thinking that I kind of had a foresight. In fact, I met with the CEO of the company, of US Search at the time, Mr. Cohen, and I said, I don't think we can continue doing this. At some point, technology will advance enough that people will start doing their own searches. And that turned out to be true. So I started thinking about continuing my education in different paths and go to college and become an attorney. So somehow I finished my pre-law program, political science pre-law. After that, I thought about going to law school. Then I got a job with Metro as an intern. This was about 20 years ago. I met a lady on the bus who, out of respect, I will get up for her to sit down. And one day she said, "Oh, you're always reading a book." I said, "Yeah, I'm in college and I get tired after work, heading to school." And he said, "Why don't you try and apply for an internship at Metro?" I said, "Is it free?" She said, "No." I said, "Good, I'll be there." So the rest is history. And I started working there as an intern. Soon they offered me the opportunity to manage, to oversee the program itself. So we reinvented the program, and after 20 years, here I am. Within Metro, I moved from administration to operations, where I was in the bus operation system as a supervisor. I learned a lot. The technical skill, my computer skill was very useful. And after about 10 years there, I moved back into administration, where I am today managing the internship program that I came in through, and the ELTP program as well. It's been very interesting. I still dream of becoming a lawyer, but I don't know if that will be happening anytime soon. But that was my path. And one thing that I learned is that it doesn't matter whether you are in a court of law defending people, or you are a journalist reporting events and happenings around the world. The most important thing is you connect with people, and that's something that I'm enjoying doing through these programs, internship and ELTP. That's in brief. That's my. I ended up my education with a Master of Science in Public Administration. In case I omitted that, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And one question I definitely want to make sure I ask, because I get it all the time, and I'm sure you guys probably get it too, is what kind of jobs are at LA Metro? Is it just driving a bus? I think there's a misunderstanding of just how truly wide the scope is, and the occupations that exist in transportation under the umbrella of LA Metro. So can you guys share a little bit about?
Yeah,
go ahead, Tai.
Absolutely. When I go into the community or go to colleges and go to campuses to speak to students, the recurring question is, what do you have at Metro? Metro provides a lot. We have a lot of career pathways, administration, management, planning, service operations, engineering, all the sections of engineering, mechanical, civil, electrical, electronic, accounting department, finance, IT, safety and security, law enforcement, all aspects of human resources, purchasing, civil rights, audits, program management, contract administration, even some elements of health management, environmental engineering, communications, general services, etc. We have unlimited graphic design and communication, PR, name it. Most of the things you see out there, for instance, our ads and our design, everything is done in-house. So Metro provides a lot of career opportunities. Marion can chip in as well.
Thanks, Tai. You did a great job. I wanted to add that there's two types of jobs that we have. We have 5 unions. So we have ATU, which are mostly our maintenance and IT folks. We also have TCU, which are the clerks. And I want to add that there's a TCU training school, which is where Job Corps is located downtown LA. If you have any young people that are interested in going over there to get training. I know that they are working with some of the other transportation companies, such as Amtrak, Bombardier, Metrolink. So if you have any young people that are interested in going to Job Corps, the TCU school is downtown. We also have our frontline supervisors, like Tai said, he started as an intern and he moved up into the transportation operations supervisor side of the house. That union is called ASME, and that's our frontline supervisors. I am going to also say we have something called non-contract. Tai talked about many of those jobs. Those are our professional and paraprofessional jobs, and there's a whole host. He mentioned most of them. HR is one of those departments. Training and development is another department, which we're in. Talent development, which we're now calling workforce development. So we have a whole host. We have over 650 different jobs. They are listed on the webpage. If you go to www.metro.net, all our jobs are listed there. You can find them on our webpage, as well as our current job offerings. I know right now with COVID-19, we do have a hiring freeze, but I am excited about the internship programs because that's an entrance. That's why if you ever saw our career pathway booklet, the areas that Tai and I work on are called Transportation Gateway. This is your entrance into the organization. So the TCAP program, I'm happy to announce, has been around for 23 years. They haven't made a decision yet, senior management, because we're looking at how we can get our employees back to work. So we're looking at that right now. But that program has gone on for 23 years, and many of our current staff have either been a TCAP intern or a college intern, and now lately a ELTP. So that's a great segue. I do want to add this, Katie, as well. We're talking about our agency, but we're lucky in LA because we have the ports, we have the aviation, we have the world airports, we have Burbank, we also have the railroad and rail. We have a whole host of other opportunities in transportation that young people aren't aware of. So we've been doing that for the last 23 years, and I'm happy to say I happened to get involved with transportation, but I really didn't know anything about the industry. I just thought bus, rail, maintenance, the custodian. And I do want to say that most of our jobs, you have to be at least 21, so it doesn't hurt to go and get that additional schooling under your belt. But we do have some programs where you start as the lowest level, but you still have to be around 18. And that's for a safety precaution because we want you to be mature. So I just want you to say that there's plenty of opportunities. And as I said before, we have over 650 different job classifications. Does that help you?
No, that's wonderful. And this is a perfect segue to kind of dive a little bit more into the TCAP program and the other internship programs. One of the things that I think that Metro and Marion and her team have done really well is they take the program very seriously and very personally, and they work very hard to get as many students. I think last year it was over 200.
We had 200. Right? We had 263 when we started. And then the day of orientation, we had 252, and we graduated 239.
Excellent. And what I love is that it lets students explore different areas. So they and I'm taking Marion's fire here, but okay. But it, you know, they ask their areas of interest, and they do their utmost to really try to place students at least within their top 3 to 4 of where they want to go and explore. Which I think is really great to give students this exposure. And it's very unique because it's a paid summer internship for high school students. So with that, Miriam, I'm going to kick it to you to share about the TCAP program. And then of course for Tai to share a little bit more about the college internship programs as well. And if you have applications or more information, we can post that in the chat box as well for folks to refer back to.
Well, the TCAP program, as I said earlier, has since for 23 years. This would be our 23rd year. You have to have a 2.5 or better to be eligible to participate in the program. We really want to give a real world, practical, hands-on experience. So we ask that the students submit an application. This year we did something really different. We used Google Apps, and we did have 300 applications come in. So we have cut off anyone interested in the program, but always think in terms of next year. And I always find that's a great incentive because whoever participates in the previous year always goes back and shares their experience. We really don't have to advertise the program. So you have to be eligible to work in the United States. We do have a requirement. If you're under 18, you have to have a work permit. If you're over 18, we do fingerprint you. And those are some of the requirements, and you have to have permission to work in the US. So it's a 7-week program. We do offer projects. So 4 days out the week, you are placed in one of, and Katie said this already, mentioned it, you're placed in one of your area of interest. Oftentimes, a lot of the young people want to go to communications, marketing, but we do ask you to pick 3 different places that you would like to consider working. They do understand that it's an opportunity to come and learn about our business. And what happens is if you're 11th grader and you graduate, you pass to the 12th grade and you're eligible to come back for a second year and try an opportunity in a new department or division in our business. So on graduation, we have a project. Last year we had 9 projects and the young people did a phenomenal job. We had a graphic design project where they could look at, in previous years we did the Olympics for the bus wraps, but this past year they asked them to design what our rail cars would look so that they would be consistent in their look. So we have 2 teams, the teams will compete. We always do a safety video. We found from the safety department that a lot of our high school students we don't have the type of videos to address rail safety to our high schoolers because they're the ones that are mostly out on the stations when they're going back and forth to school. So we have the young people address safety from their perspective and they do phenomenal videos. We also had one by LAPD and Transit Security where they identified how young people could be much more safer or our riding passengers could be safer, and they did a video. And they also did a poster board to feature some of the postings. Now, our CEO always meets with them and he always says that he will use some of those ideas for future events or activities out of communications and graphic design. Another project had to do with going out and looking at our stations to see how they could make improvements. We had a group from engineering that looked at some of the transit-oriented development and construction. Tai, you want to add any more that we worked on projects? Tai?
Yes, no, I'm here. Yeah, interesting. I was part of the engineering project, which focused on enhancing our existing rail stops. We sent the student out to do analysis of these stations and tell us how we can enhance them. And they did a great job, which encompasses use of AutoCAD and other engineering skills and computer skills as well. It was very interesting because, as Marion mentioned, we emphasize project-based learning. And with those projects, we're able to mentor the students, appropriately supervise them, which help them understand their career pathway or the career they intend to focus on in the future.
Another area that they really love and enjoy is a smart city design. There was a competition out of Washington, the Federal Transit Administration, that gave awards to a city that basically when they did their urban planning, they would think in terms of how can we make the city smarter in terms of the environmentally being safe, mitigating traffic congestion and so forth. So our young people do a great job using their own ideas and ingenuity, and a lot of them are really into saving the environment. So they've done some fantastic projects. Katie's seen some of them, and that's the selling point for having them come back. So they work 4 days a week in their respective departments. On the 5th day, we have all 200 together, and we have Toastmasters. We have speakers come in the afternoon, they work on their projects. It's a great experience and we love it.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful program and I've been happy to be a part of it, supporting their efforts for a while. I can't remember how many years, but Jen and I have been doing it for a while and it's something we love to do. And just a quick clarification, I'm trying to answer some questions in the chat. I know summer 2020 applications are closed, but the application is usually released in February, early March.
In February. We give them 30 days to apply. So this year, what happens is we have a new online application. Tai and I really worked hard to have a separate one for TCAP and our intern programs and our ELTP. So it wasn't ready. So we went with the Google app this year, and it worked, but we still had a lot of behind the scenes work to do.
Oh, yeah, let's make sure everyone except the speakers are muted.
No lo des todo eso, nomás un poquito.
And Melissa, if you, I don't know if you can do me a favor and mute some folks. I'd appreciate it. And you might have mentioned this, Miriam, or not, but besides the application process, there's also an interview process in person. So students get that experience of interviewing. Interviewing is one of those art forms that the more you do it, the better you get. So I think it's a good opportunity for them. And I also want to make sure I ask too, as well, as we kind of start to wind down here. I know that you have some really great literature for the TCAP program. Could you send that over to me, and I'll make sure to disperse it to the group? I know you have some.
Everything that Tai discusses on our webpage. If anybody wants to go to the web, it's listed there. But all other items are hard copy. We don't have it electronically to give you the brochure.
Can you share the link?
I can send you the link, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I'll make sure to send that link out to everyone as well, along with the recording. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. We got 2 minutes to spare. I tried to catch most of the questions here in the chat box, and I think some of them kind of did get covered. We talked about the kinds of jobs. You went a little bit over the day of a typical intern. We're going to share the link. Are there any other questions for Miriam or Tai that I might have missed?
Can I just emphasize one area that Tai and I really like to discuss?
Absolutely.
The resumes. Even if they don't have any work experience, they should put something down. There's something they can say and help them with their resumes, because that's an area that I think it's a missing link. But I do go over it when they come through the program, and they do have to redo their resumes based on my little workshop with them, so that they can have a better looking resume when they leave.
Yes, absolutely. Resumes are something I think students struggle with, because the experience that they've had in high school or the activities they've done, they don't necessarily know how to pull out the skill, right? So even if they haven't had a job, they could have been, a camp counselor where they had leadership skills and organizational skills. So really kind of helping them pull out those skills, even if they haven't had a job.
I even tell them to volunteer work, if they babysit, what type of responsibilities. Just stick with the core competencies, leadership, you manage, those type of things.
Awesome. And then I see a question, field type interns or shadowing. So for that program, is it a shadowing, or is it more of how would you describe that kind of work that the interns do?
Oh no, they're actually called student interns, and they do a lot of administrative work. A lot of them are working in the areas where they have to use computers. They also, work with our office tools. And we also have specific Metro software programs, like for inventory control, for ordering supplies. They do real work. And as Tai said, those in engineering get to work on plans, use I don't want to say GIS, but different schematics and software programs in engineering. They do real work. They have exposure to actually all of Metro software programs.
And then one final question, what type of applicants do you look for when you're looking to hire for the internship program?
Right. Thank you. If we are talking about college students, in my case, we focus on passion and essential skills. Some of the skills that the previous speaker mentioned. If you're a tech person, you may have certification badges on all that you need, or your BS or BA degree. But most importantly, you should be able to articulate what you do, be able to communicate effectively. So written and verbal communication skills are imperative for your growth in this environment. In our sector, being a public sector, you will also understand all the factors that influence our business environment as well. So those essential skills: communication, written, verbal, reasoning, ability to understand people, and most importantly, be passionate about what you want to do. If you want to be an engineer, be passionate about it, and be engaging, be ready to roll anytime you're called up.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're 2 minutes over, but that's okay. I think it was 2 minutes well worth it. I really want to thank Mariam and Tai for not only agreeing to come on and share about your own personal career journeys and the opportunities at LA Metro, but also to thank you for always being such a strong partner for our LA colleges and especially our LA high school students, and all the work you do is so appreciated. So thank you so much. Lila, any comments?
Just a reminder that we have one more series that will take place next Monday, May 19th, at the same time, same link. And at that time, we will feature business entrepreneurship and logistics and healthcare, specifically orthopedic technician. So thank you all for joining, and we look forward to talking with you next week. Have a good week.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lila.
Katie.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Katie.